Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Chaos Child. When we last parted ways, we were about to be stabbed to death as Sarika by Wakui, and it seems like something's sparking between them as they come close. What's going to happen? Are we going to die? Are we going to be saved by Takuru at the last minute? Are we going to have our powers restored and draw our D-sword for from what our perspective, is the first time ever to save our lives? Or is a third party going to intervene when Wakui tries to stab us? I'm quite interested to find out what happens, and I think we'll start finding out right now. We scream. Alright. There was a loud throbbing noise in my head. Again, everything is told from Sarika's perspective. My whole field of vision suddenly shifted. I put my hand to the wall to try and steady myself, but it wasn't the wall, it was the floor. I'd fallen to the ground. It hurts? I held my head. The pain was so bad I couldn't sense anything else. One vision after another came flowing inside of me. Oh my goodness, so what happened is, our reaction instead of getting stabbed is to fall to the ground from pain from memories coming out. Okay, that's one way to evade an attack. He goes to stab you and you're like, I'm gonna collapse to the floor in agony. Yeah, probably wouldn't expect that. He'd expect you to retreat or maybe like try to protect yourself, but probably not just fall to the ground like a puppet with their strings cut. One vision after another comes flowing through me. It felt like my head was being ripped open, as if my memories were being forced to come back. Or maybe he used his D-sword to like force us to think of something. What was this? Where was this? We've been here before. Who was this? We've been here before with our memories. No, I knew all the answers. What, I knew? That couldn't be true. It had to be true. I'd seen them before. No, I'd never seen them before in my life. We're getting hit by all the suppressed memories. I clutched my head in my hands, confused. I curled up to into a ball and moaned. I don't know. I don't know if these visions are real or not. I don't know anything. Stop it. So, is he attacking? Because it from the previous lines of dialogue before we started this part, he was clearly attacking. Is he just playing mind tricks on us? Is he just messing with our mind instead of actually attacking and just using his powers to alter our memories? Or our perception of our memories, because some of them are clearly blocked? Stop it. Alright, you want to stop? I saw Miyashiro try to stand between me and Wakui and get slammed backwards. He was smashed into the floor, hard.
邪魔しないでもらえるかな。君には何もできないんだから。
Don't get in my way, please. You can't do anything.
今頃後悔しても遅いよ。ギガロマニアックスの力を放棄しなければ僕を殺せたかもしれないのに。
It's too late for regrets. If you hadn't abandoned your Gigalomaniac power, you might have been able to kill me. Miyashiro? Why? Why was he trying to save me? Oh no, wait. Are you okay? For a moment I couldn't speak, but I looked at him and nodded. When I saw him calling me Onoe, it felt like it overlapped with a memory that made me want to cry. What's this? Wakui was frowning at Miyashiro as he held the huge blade in his hand.
予想以上に硬いな、彼女は。これだけのことをできる力があったっていうのに。
Man, she's tougher than I thought. You have the power to do this, then why?
それが
Because
僕があいつにできる唯一の償いだから。
it was the one thing I could do to atone for her. At some point, I'd forgotten the pain in my head. I couldn't take my eyes off Miyashiro. Is he really that handsome?
一緒にいたら何も変わることができない。離れたからこそ、僕もあいつも、もう間違えない。
Together, nothing changes. Apart, both she and I could stop making mistakes.
そうじゃないと、また繰り返してしまう。
Otherwise, we'd do it again.
繰り返せばいいじゃないか。それのどこが悪い。
Why not do it again? What's wrong with that? Miyashiro was crawling on the ground, but he looked up at his enemy with eyes that would never get into anyone.
男が好きな子にすがりついて生きてくなんて。
A man can't spend his life clinging to the girl he loves.
それが理由かい。
That's your reason? Even when Wakui looked at him with a wry smile, he didn't flinch at all. There was no sign of shame.
そんな理由で悪いか。神様気取りのあんたたちには人の気持ちが理解できないだけだろ。
The reason is that reason not good enough? You people think you're gods. Maybe you just can't understand human feelings?
なら試してみろよ。
Possible. It's very possible, right? Why not try it then?
試す
Right?
僕のことなんて殺そうと思えばいつでも殺せるんだろう。だったらもう少し僕を試してみたらどうだ。
You can kill me whenever you want, right? Why not test me?
あんたの言うことが正しいんならいつか僕は戻ってしまうだろう。でも僕が正しければ戻ることは絶対にない。
If I'm right, someday I'll go back, but if you're right, someday I'll go back. But if I'm right, I never will.
それを試してみたらどうだ。
Why not try and see who's right? Okay. Miyashiro stood up slowly, without anyone's help.
そんな口車に僕が乗るとでも
I really think I'll agree to that? I don't
乗
know.
るさ。だってあんたは序列とやらを元に戻したいんだろう。次の世界で生き残るためにみっともなく委員会にしがみついて。
You will. You want your rank or whatever it is back, right? You're pathetically clinging to the committee so you can survive in the next world?
だったらあんたを失墜させた僕という本当のイレギュラーを観測し続ければいい。
Why not keep watching me, the real irregular who disappointed you?
もしも僕がギガロマニアックスに戻ってしまったらあんたにいくらでも協力してやる。あんたの成果にすればいい。
If I ever go back to being a gigalomaniac, I'll help you with whatever you want. You can claim all the glory.
自分をかけて僕とゲームをしようっていうのかい
So you're gonna play a game with me and bet yourself as the prize?
ああ。元からこれはクソったれなゲームだったんだか
This
ら
whole
な。
thing was the damn game from the start. Of course.
うーん
Okay.
もちろん僕は負ける気なんてない。最後の1秒まであがいてやる。
Of course, I have no intention of losing. I'll struggle to the last second.
宮代くん君って面白いね
Sure, you're a very interesting person. Yeah, that's an interesting way for this encounter to play out. I wasn't expecting this to be the result. Not in the slightest. To resume it. Suddenly, Wakui vanished, leaving behind only the eerie light of his blade seared into our eyes. He can teleport? If he can teleport, why the fuck does he not just
了
teleport?
解したそのゲーム受けて立つことにしよう
Very well, I accept your game. Why doesn't he just teleport kill us in, like, the Hana route? That's weird. Like, if he can teleport, why go find a pterodactyl and try to maneuver it awkwardly instead of just teleporting and killing us?
それじゃ今からスタートだ
Let's start now,
Miyashiro-kun.
Miyashiro. Okay. I heard a voice from somewhere. It was like it was coming from directly within my head. And then everything went quiet.
おい、宮代。
Miyashiro? Suddenly, Kunosada was back just as quickly as she'd disappeared. It was as if she had never left.
大丈夫ですか
Are you okay? Yeah, was all she said. She was biting her lip, perhaps frustrated at how much stronger her opponent was.
涌井はどうした
Where's Wakui?
とりあえず口車に乗ってくれました。しばらくは大丈夫だと思います。それより
He accepted my proposal for now. I think we should be okay for a while, but more importantly... Miyashiro pointed to the PC and Kunosada leapt at it.
例の画像は無事だが。くそ。
The image is safe, but...
やられた。委員会に関するデータが。
He got us. All the data on the committee is gone. He can wipe computers on a whim. Okay. Specific pieces of data.
おい、大丈夫か？
Hey, are you okay?
え
Yes.
いきなり中に入れなくなった。一体何があったんだ？
All of a sudden, I couldn't get in. What happened? The sound of fingers on a keyboard echoed off the walls. Kunosato grimaced.
重要なハードディスクだけ物理的に破壊していった。これでは復旧もできない。
He destroyed just the important hard disks. There's no way to restore them. Damn that Wakui.
涌井がいたのか？
Wakui was here. Miyashiro nodded.
詳しいことは後で話します。
I'll tell you the details later.
先に目的を済ませましょう。久野里さん、さっきのデジカメ、動画も撮れますよね。
First, let's do what we came here for. Kunosato, you can take video with that camera, right?
お前、ここで犯行声明の映像を撮る気か？
You're gonna make your confession here? Seems
は
like.
い。涌井は、委員会はもうここには現れません。
Wakui, the committee, they aren't coming back here.
一刻も早く、カオスチャイルド症候群に関することは終わりにしたいんです。
I want to end everything to do with Chaos Child Syndrome as fast as I can. Kunosato bit her lip once more and sighed a little.
新庄さん、こいつの言う通りにしてやろう。脳内スキャン装置を運び出す手はずを整えてくれ。あれを調べれば手がかりくらいは残っているかもしれない。
Shinjo, let's do what he says. Get some people together to carry out the brain scan device. We might be able to find some clues from it.
ああ。
Sure. The detective seemed a little annoyed, but he must have been used to being talked to like that because he went to the other room. Miyashiro was looking at me. I tried to tell him about all the fragments of memories I'd seen, but just as I opened my mouth, he motioned for me to stop.
尾上さん、
Oh no.
何？
What?
案内、ありがとう。怖い目に遭わせちゃってごめん。もう大丈夫だから。
Thanks for taking us here. Sorry for scaring you like that. It's okay.
そんなこと。
I don't care about that. But those memories.
ここからは、僕たちの仕事だ。だから、
The rest of this is our job, so Miyashiro looked toward the exit. You can go, he seemed to say. No, that wasn't it. Go home, his eyes said. I had to ask. I had to find out for sure, but my lips wouldn't move. The words wouldn't come out. Why? Why was I...
宮代、やるぞ。
Miyashiro, let's do this. Leroy Jenkins?
はい。
Right, alright. Miyashiro turned his back and began to ignore me. He followed Kunosato's instructions and put a chair up against the wall.
何を喋ったら、より注目を集めますかね。
What do I say to attract the most attention? I mean, they're here for you anyway.
お前が起こしたことになっている事件だろ。それらしいことを言っておけ。
Don't ask me. You're the one who supposedly committed the murders. Say something that sounds like a murderer. Supposedly. My headache had almost gone away when Wakui disappeared, but it started to get a little stronger. My head was throbbing with pain, and for some reason the pain was eating into my heart.
なら、この世界を恨んだり、憎んだりしてみましょうか。
Why not try saying something about how you hate the whole world?
妥当なところだな。
Sounds good. We'll go with that.
それでいこう。
The two of them had stopped paying any attention to me at all. I staggered towards the exit as if trying to escape from the headache. I turned back before I went up the stairs, but no one was looking at me. Miyashiro wasn't looking at me either. I left the basement without saying a word.
僕がこの事件を起こしたのは、僕のせいではありません。この社会そのものが害悪に満ちているからです。
It's not my fault I did this. It's the fault of our sick society. I could hear him speaking into the camera below. I was getting further and further away. I was staggering unsteadily as if I was in a waking dream. But I'd succeeded in my goal. Bruce would wake up now, and then I could ask her about me. Me? Why was I going to ask her about myself again? Everything felt so hazy, I couldn't remember. Oh, it didn't matter. I should just do what Miyashiro said and go back home. My head hurt. I probably wasn't feeling well. I needed to go home and rest.
私の家ってどこだっけ？
Where's my home again?
あ
Oh,
あ、
right.
そっか。横浜だよ。
Yokohama. Right, right. Why I'd come here, what the result had been. Even how I felt right now, I didn't know any of it anymore. I was walking through town. It was probably the slowest I'd ever walked in my life. As the sun started to set on the city, I kept having trouble walking forward, but I couldn't stop. I realized I wasn't supposed to be here, so I forced myself to keep going. For some reason, once I got away from Miyashiro, my headache stopped. It was as if his very existence was the cause of it.
そうか。
Right.
今日って。
Today's... I looked at all the happy girls and remembered. February 14th. Valentine's Day, oh boy. The day when girls told boys they liked them. Or, I guess that's true in Japan.
私、あんたみたいなやつ、大嫌い。
I hate people like you. I hadn't really been thinking about it when I said it. It wasn't often you told someone to their face you didn't like them. You only realize what you really wanted to say after you've said goodbye, of course. Was that a line from a movie? Who did I go to see it with? I laughed, even though I thought it was stupid. I was happy now. I bet the old me was a nasty girl who hadn't been happy at all. But now I'd forgotten all about it. I'd forgotten all about it and could be happy. That's right, I was happy now. That's why I had to laugh.
ねえ、セリカ。あなたはどこへ行く気なの？
Sarika, where are you going? I asked myself this, but I didn't answer. I just kept walking. I was walking in a crowd full of people, and as I walked, I stopped being able to figure out how much of the world was real. All the nightmarish things that just happened, all these people were walking without knowing anything about them. Which world was real? It had to be this one. The big TVs were playing wonderful music. There was a delicious smell coming from the crepe stand. This was the right world, the fun world. It had to be this world. But I knew this was a lie. But I pretended I didn't. I kept smiling and walking. I was a liar. Someone who was honest with themselves, like maybe a child or something, might have gone back to that basement. Because this town, this place, it should be so much more fun, but it felt so awful. I couldn't find the place where I belonged, but I couldn't go back to that basement. I wasn't a kid anymore. Not anymore. I was a lying grown-up. Okay. Suddenly, a scene from the nightmare came back. The fragments of the memories I'd seen there. So are we gonna remember what's happening? I'm curious. This is kind of the moment where you put your character starts putting things together and starts filling in the puzzles, right? Filling in the puzzle. They were scattered about like pieces of a puzzle and they were eating away at me. So yes, they even made a puzzle reference there. Or a puzzle metaphor there. Beyond them, I remembered a tiny little feeling.
これ、どうにかしてよ。
Do something about this, please? There was probably no way to get it back. I'd realized that no matter who I asked, it was one thing they'd never tell me. The memories and feelings kept spinning about inside me. I wanted to go back there, but I couldn't. I'm surprised she actually left. Maybe it's because she's got like that killer headache and she's having a hard time focusing that she's actually like doing his ass. Or maybe it's because the more her memories unlock, the easier it is for Takuru to tell her what to do. I kept walking with nowhere to go. And eventually I found myself in front of a building near the station. It had been 30 minutes since the sunset. Okay.
なんだっけ。
What was the name of the place? The Hikaru? Yep. We're going up into the Hikaru. I assume that's the case. I looked up at a tall building. I couldn't tell how many floors it was. I couldn't remember ever coming here, but my body went inside without hesitation. I stepped out of the elevator and saw a pretty theater. I could see a poster for a musical on the wall. There was a picture on it I had seen somewhere before. The soiree was just about to start. A performance held in the evening. A daytime performance is a matinee. Did not know that one. Alright, I stood in line to buy a ticket. Luckily, there was a seat open near the front of the house. I bought my ticket and buried myself in the waves of people going into the theater.
確
Place.
か
But something was strange. I thought I'd never been here before, but it was familiar. Didn't she not have any money? How did she have the money to buy a ticket to an actual play? I'd come here before. I walked up the stairs through the crowd and opened the door to the theater. Our theater room, right? Huh? What are we wearing? Thigh highs and some shorts? Baggy shorts, it looks like. And a white dress shirt with a tie. Okay. When I stepped inside, I heard a sound like something bursting within me. Something snapped in my head. I walked toward my seat. I slowly weaved my way through the other audience members going down the steps of the corridor. The curtain was lowered, and on it there was a projection with the name of the musical and an illustration on it. But what I was seeing was an empty theater. An empty stage lit by bright lights. I sat in my seat, and after a while the buzzer rang and the curtain came up. The orchestra played a low sound that echoed in the pit of my stomach, and the cast came up on stage. But my mind still saw the same thing. It was still looking at an empty stage.
ここで私は
Is this where I... On stage, the actors started to pantomime, rowing a boat. They were creating a delusional world on stage filled with things that didn't exist, but I was seeing a different world. It was the world I'd lived in before. The musical kept going, but the empty stage that only I saw didn't change. My memories ached. My feelings threatened to overflow. I'd done something here with someone. The sadness from when I'd talked with them was filling my heart. The pain in my throat when I screamed at them was coming back to me. It hurt to breathe, like I was gasping like I was underwater. The actors sang their voices, riding on the powerful music. It was a song the heroes sang to inspire themselves and the people before they went off to fight the revolution. People of this fictional world all lined up and yelled. Come and join us, they sang. And then it happened. I saw someone on the empty stage. They were holding something up high in their hands. I could see it was a sword gleaming with a dull shine, a tool for battle.
それが僕があいつにできる唯一の償いだから。
We go back, get a flashback to about a couple hours ago her time. Because it was the one thing I could do to atone for her. Alright, we're putting it together now.
僕たちは一緒にいたら何も変わることができない。離れたからこそ僕もあいつももう間違えない。
Together, nothing would change. Apart, she and I would stop making mistakes.
男が好きな子にすがりついて生きてくなんて。
A man can't spend his life clinging to the girl he loves. I don't get why he phrased it this way. Shouldn't he just phrase it in like the... Like, it seems like a weird way to phrase his opinion that he needs to leave the dream at some point. So there's like this other person watching a play, and this person is like the most affected by this play, but they don't even see the play. I think that's kind of amusing, but it's nice to have this image. Got the phrasing. Oh my god, he probably did get the phrasing from Cool Cat Press. He is kind of a cringe dude. I was crying. It was the same tears I felt on my cheek when I woke up in the morning. I quickly wiped them away with the back of my hand, but they didn't stop. I kept wiping them away and they didn't stop coming. Huh? She really likes the play, okay? It was no good. They wouldn't stop. I couldn't stop them. I buried my face in my hands.
後悔なんてしないよ。
I don't have any regrets.
僕は自分のしたことに悔いはない。 満足してるんだ。
I don't regret what I did. I'm satisfied.
この
You scum. Starting to regret those lines, aren't you?
ずっと隣にいたって誰？
Keep going. Who was always by your side?
親友だよ。
My best friend.
親友なんていたんだね。あんなひどい殺人を犯すようなあんたにも。
You had a best friend, huh? Even though you committed all those murders?
あんたの親友って同じように症候群者だったの？今何をしてるの？
Is your best friend another chaos child? What are they doing now?
いや、普通の人だった。もう亡くなったよ。
She's a normal person. She's dead now.
彼女はこの世界のどこにもいない。
She's gone. The play ended and the audience gave a standing ovation. The actors stood on stage and bowed. And you had a front row seat and you're just like crying. Well, at least they know you appreciate them. Alone, I wiped away my tears. I sat there for a long time, unable to get up. No one else could see the blurry world I saw. I looked up to stop the tears from falling down. And the lights on the stage shone down on me like a spotlight. Alright. We've reached our ending. Sort of. Those were some nice credits. Alright. So we're getting a post-credit scene? Let's see. October 2016, here we go. So it's been another, like, 8 months. Yeah, I was gonna say 8 months. It was like February 14th.
次の検査は来週の同じ時間になりますので、お大事に。
Next examination will be at the same time next week. Take care.
はい。ありがと
Oh,
うござ
hello,
いました。
Senri. Alright, thank you. As she bowed to the nurse, who she had come to know quite well, Senri Minamisawa, the girl who was once Nono Karus, checked the time. It was almost noon. The exams were getting shorter and shorter. They hadn't even given her any drugs today. That probably meant she was getting better.
姉さん。
Sister. Uki Yamazoe, whose exam had evidently been as short as hers, came down from the psych ward on the 5th floor. When she saw Senri, she ran over.
姉さんも今日は終わり？
Are you done for the day too?
こら、病院内は走らない。
Hey, no running in the hospital. Oh, that's no-no for sure.
ごめんなさい。
You're right, I'm sorry. Senri felt herself smile as she watched her little sister walk fast, but not run, toward the front desk. Her little sister had struggled with her physical therapy, but now she could walk and run like a normal girl. She wanted to be a nurse, just like Senri. It would be the perfect job for her.
じゃあ行こっか。思ったより早かったから、みんなをランチに誘ってみる？来てくれると思うわ。
We got out earlier than expected, so why don't we invite everyone to lunch? I'm sure they'll come. Oh. Uki suddenly seemed to remember something and stopped.
忘れ物？
Did you forget something?
うん。
No, Uki was choosing her words carefully as she looked at the elevator that had just come down.
いいの？姉さん。
Are you sure? You sure, Senri? That was a very quiet yes. Senri put her hand on her little sister's head.
ちゃんと挨拶は済ませたでしょ？それでもう十分。
We said goodbye, right? That's good enough.
それに、最近は警備が厳重で誰も近寄れないわ。
And security is really tight recently. No one can get in.
でも
But-、
だからいいのよ、ウキ。
It's fine,
そ
Uki.
うしちゃダメなんだ
Don't be like that, okay? I assume they want to see Takuru and security's watching him, so he can't get it. Can't go anywhere. Her little sister nodded a second later, and Senri smiled.
定期検診お疲れ様です。
Glad to see you survived your checkup. Hey, we finally get Arimura for one scene in this route.
お疲れ様です。
Thanks. When she contacted them on her phone, she found that Hine Arimura and Hana Kazuki had both been waiting for her call all morning. They met in front of Shibuya Station and started walking. It had been a long time since the four of them had gone through the city together like this. They saw each other often at the hospital, but their exams and physical therapy were all at different times, which made it hard to schedule anything. But today was a special day. Even if they didn't say anything, they all knew they were going to meet. Okay.
今日、ユウは
What's you doing today?
ユウとなら、学校のお友達と図書館へ行ったわ。
You went to the library with his friend.
うわ、せっかくの休みに図書館とか。末恐ろしいなあ。
Wow,
おい。
going to the library on his day off. Now that's a scary thought.
ユウは将来、弁護士になるって張り切ってるから。
Yu's all excited to be a lawyer when he grows up.
ほへー、弁護士子供の夢にしちゃずいぶん。
A lawyer? For a kid's dream, that's pretty,
あ
He wants to be a lawyer? I mean, alright. Do your thing, I guess, kid. That's a lot of work. So that's it, Hina almost said, but she stopped herself. Both Hana and Hina immediately understood the meaning of Yuto Tachibana's childlike dream, as well as the fact that it might even come true. And Yuto knew what day it was, too. It had to be why he went to the library with his friends, just like the four of them had gathered together. An indescribable sadness was threatening to build up between them.
おっと、いけね
Oops. It was Arimura's loud voice that broke the silence.
え。皆の衆、のんびりしてるとどの店も満席になっちまいますぜ。
How about if we don't hurry? All the restaurants are gonna be full.
そうね。
That's right.
どこで食べる？
Where should we eat?
超お腹空いてるので、いつものカフェでいいと思います。どうみんな？
I'm super duper hungry, so I suggest the usual cafe. What do you think, guys?
それでいい。
Fine with that? Alright, are we going to LAX?
私もそこで。
Me too, that's fine.
じゃあそうしましょうか。
Alright, let's go there then.
では、お姉さんについてきてください。
Alright, then follow me, please. Hina raised one hand up like a tour guide and wrapped the other around Hannah's. The two of them had been hanging out together a lot recently. And then she plunged into the crowd. There were no Chaos Child Syndrome patients to be seen. 8 months ago, over 80% of the Chaos Child Syndrome patients in Shibuya all fell unconscious at once. They were all quickly split up and taken to nearby hospitals. The hospitals were overflowing with patients. It was almost like the earthquake 6 years ago. Nope, 7 now. Even those patients who had escaped the initial wave quickly fell unconscious as well and were also taken to hospitals. Fortunately, no one was seriously injured. Several people were injured when they'd fallen, but none of them badly. And several days later, the patients began to wake up, almost all of them in a state of extreme panic. They couldn't believe their real forms. Senri, Hina, and the others woke up at the same time and were terribly confused. But they didn't panic like the others. They quickly realized that he was involved and that he had done this for everyone's sake. So all the patients returned to a normal but harsh reality.
南沢先輩、列から離れないでくださいよ。置いていっちゃいますよ。
Namisawa, don't get in a line. We'll leave you behind.
あ、
Oh, right.
ごめんなさい。
Senri realized she'd stopped walking as she reflected on the past. She ran to catch up with the others. What had happened when she was asleep? Right after she'd woken up, Takuru had told her himself. Kunosato and Shinjo let her meet him in a special hospital room. He told her about Sarika's true nature and the truth behind the return of the new generation madness. Wakui, the committee, and Chaos Child Syndrome 2. He told her about everything. And lastly, he told her the truth about Sakuma, the father she'd believed in. And there was something that she, Senri Minamisawa, or Nono Kurusu depending, had to tell him too. Now that she didn't look like Nono Kurusu anymore, there was no way she could keep up the lie. She'd had trouble working up the courage before she went into Takuru's room. She'd hesitated so many times and almost thought about not meeting him at all. But it was the other girls from her room that had scolded her and urged her on. She'd been the last to wake up because of the wound in her chest, and by the time she did, Uki, Hine, and Hana had already seen the real her. Everyone had forgiven her without saying a word. But when she'd hesitated about meeting Takuru, they'd gotten really mad. Can't you trust him? They asked. Is he the kind of guy that wouldn't forget you? He's the kind of guy who already knows and already forgave you in an alternate timeline, or whatever your hallucination was. And that was enough for her to decide. After she told him everything, Takuru had laughed gently.
バカだな。もっと早く話してくれればよかったのに。
Ah, you're so silly. You should have told me sooner. Every time she remembered his voice then, she felt like she would cry. Denry gave up her old name and body and went back to being herself. She'd been forced into 6 months of physical therapy, not because of the syndrome, but because the stab wound as well. But at last she was capable of going outside on her own. She'd gone back to Hekiko Academy, which was now just a normal private school, and started living the life of a normal student along with the others. I like how she's wearing... Hold up. I like how Hannah's wearing her jumpsuit from her own route. That's kind of cool. A nice choice. Oh, I'm sorry, what is it?
検査どうでしたか?
How was the exam?
いつも通りね。でももう薬も処方されてないし、そろそろ治療もおしまいかしら。
Same as ever, but they didn't give me any medicine, so I think I'm about done with doctors.
和樹の方は?
What about you, Kazuki?
私もそうかも。
Me too. Maybe. Kazuki looked up at the sky as she spoke. Does she not have her powers anymore? She'd been lying to everyone too. And just like Senri, she'd been reluctant to admit it, and Hine had scolded her too. When she opened up to Takuru about her lie, he forgave her like nothing was wrong at all. Even after losing her power, Hana still didn't talk a lot, but she was trying her best. That was her promise to Takuru, she thought. Oh, so she did lose her
その
powers.
声、みんなにもっと聞かせてあげるといいよ。友達も増えるんじゃないかな。
So she gave up her powers too? Okay. You should let more people hear your voice. I bet you'd make more friends. Nobody is like wanting to even consider taking on the committee to the point where they all abandon their powers right away. That's interesting. I wasn't expecting that one. I expected a couple of them would at least keep their powers, but it looks like they're all tossing them aside. Shibuya was filled with people enjoying their day off, and Senri and the others were living the same lives as everyone else, except for one person. The boy who'd been at their center. They'd only brought it up during a small silence after they'd eaten lunch at the usual cafe. At first, no one wanted to discuss it, but about the same time Senri had gotten tired of watching the ice melt in their iced tea, Hine opened her mouth to speak.
見ましたか?
Did you see? She pointed to the phone in her hand. It was displaying a gossip site. Yeah. The article was about Takuru. It said Takuru Miyashiro, the boy responsible for the serial killing in Shibuya, had been kept at AH Tokyo General Hospital to aid in research on Chaos Child Syndrome. And now that the research was finished, he was finally being sent to a detention house for the real interrogations to begin. Even if he was a minor, in light of the effect his crimes had on society, the article said there was no chance he'd ever be getting out. It said that all that in sensational and exaggerated tones.
こういうのどこで調べるのかしらね、マスコミって。
Where does the media find this stuff? Most of what the article said was right. Shinjo had told them that the day Takuru would be transferred was today. They were able to say goodbye a while before. Shinjo had set it up.
本当に最後まであの子は。
Really? Right up to the very end, he's... Last time they met, Takuru asked them for a favor. It involved Sarika Onoe. Stay away from her unless she comes to you. If she does come to you, forgive her and treat her like a normal friend. And never tell her about me or her past. He insisted on these 3 things until the very end.
でも
But Sarika hadn't come to them at all. Kunosato told them she lived in Yokohama and was attending Hekiho from there, but they hadn't heard anything else.
今何してるのかな?
What are they doing now?
何してるのかしらね。
What are they doing, you think?
さあ。
Don't know. So we haven't seen her again since she had her revelation in the tower. We might see her again before the end. Let's see. No one was sure if Uki's question was about Takuru or Sarika, or maybe both.
そろそろ行きましょうか。
Let's get going. When she stood up to go, Sanri realized something. Oh, that's right. Maybe she was asking about us. What are we doing right now? Takuru had a spot in the cafe where he always sat. Sanri found herself looking at it and almost cried again. The four of them left the cafe and slowly headed for the station. They planned to split up and go home from there. None of them were looking at their phones, but their heads were all bent lower than normal. But no one noticed. That's a depressing cafe. That's a depressing meetup. Just before the light turned green, Sanri realized they were completely buried in the people surrounding them. Her mouth opened on its own.
映画でも見ていきましょうか。
Want to go see a movie? The other three looked up in surprise. Their mouths fell in shock. They seemed to have been caught completely off
この
guard.
まま帰ってもまだ早いし。
It's just too early to go home. She was right. The sun hadn't even begun to set. Hine started to tear at her hair.
今日はこんな空気にならないようにしようと思ってきたのに。
Damn it, I was going to try and keep everyone from getting down today. Well, you clearly failed, considering how miserable our cafe stop was. Her twin tails spun angrily. Okay, when they say that, I'm not imagining her, like, twisting her head. I'm imagining her twin tails spinning like rotors. You know, like Tails? You know, like Tails' tailspin in Sonic and Tails? Yeah, that. That's what I'm thinking. They're just rotating like helicopter rotors and not generating lift. Just she's irritated, so they start spinning, and it's like, and you're just like, oh, you can hear the noise coming from her head. She's clearly irritated.
そんなこと考えてたんだ。
You were thinking about that?
そうじゃなきゃ彼氏でもないあんたと手つないだりとかしないって。
Oh, and I hold your hand. Otherwise, you're not my boyfriend.
最近
I know. I didn't know
よ
what
く
you
つ
were
ないで
into.
くるくせに。
You hold my hand all the time lately, Hannah. You're not. I mean, all right.
知らん。誰だそれは。
I don't know what you're talking about.
はいは
He's in
い。
denial.
じゃあ付き合ってくれるのね。映画。
Right. So you'll come with me to the movie, right?
バチコイ。
Sure thing. Hine clapped her hands together and then spread her arms as if to give Senri a hug.
ウキは
What about you,
この
Yuki?
後予定ないでしょ。
You're free after this, right? Right?
うん。
Yeah.
でも
Yuki made the same face she'd made at the hospital. Let's go back to the hospital after all, she seemed to say. It's almost time, isn't it? Senri knew Uki was worried about her, and that's when she smiled back, silently.
ありがとう。でも行くならやっぱり映画にしましょう。
Thanks, but if we're going somewhere, let's go see a movie, okay? Because if she did meet Takuru, she'd grab onto him and break down in tears. She didn't think she had it in her to control herself. She didn't want to let her little brother see her like that. She was never going to let him worry about her again. So,
できれば楽しい映画がいいな。タクルに手紙を書きたいの。みんなで楽しい映画を見たわよって。
let's pick a fun movie. I want to write him a letter and say we saw a fun movie.
私も書く。お手紙毎日書く。
I'll write one too. I'll write letters every day.
毎
that's
日？これは負けていられないわね。
Every day? I guess I'll have to do the same thing.
おお、ブラコン姉妹ですな。
Ooh, you really are in love. You really are a Brocon, aren't you? You two really are Brocons, sorry. Brocons, alright. Hine tried to tease them, but they both looked back at her and spoke in unison. Senri mischievously and Uki extremely seriously.
いけない？自慢の弟なの。
Is that wrong? I'm very proud of my younger brother.
自慢の兄です。
I'm very proud of my older brother. Alright.
お。
Well, Hine staggered back in exaggerated astonishment, and Senri gave her a pat to move her along.
ほら早く置いていくわよ。
Come on, hurry. I'll leave you behind. Senri went to the front and started to walk. I guess they are both Brokons. I mean, there is a route for each of them. Unlike a moment ago, she was standing tall, ready to face whatever fate had in store for her. Uki went after her, footsteps steady and firm as well. The remaining two looked at each other for a moment, and then they started to laugh and ran to catch up to the sisters. Hey, wait, Senri Uki!
映画ならおすすめの
I can
あ
recommend
るん
a
です
movie.
けど、花のおすすめはいつもバカ映画すぎて話になんない。
The movies you recommend are always stupid, though. Hannah recommending good action movies. Senri having terrible taste in movies, but you're forced to go along with her. Huh? That's strange. This is from Takuru's perspective, right? Yep. There's supposed to be data in here.
おい、勝手に触るなと
I told
何
you
度も言
again
っ
and
てるだ
again
ろ。
not to touch that. Door opened and an angry Kunosato came inside.
すいません。
Sorry.
あいつらの結果ならいつも通りクリーンだ。今のところ再発の恐れはない。
The test results were clean, just like always. There's no fear of a relapse for now. I gave a small sigh of relief when I heard that. Good, the treatment seemed to be working well.
それで、いつまで千里たちの検査って続くんですか？
How long are Nono or Senri and the others gonna keep getting the treatment?
お前、これから連れて行かれるときに人の心配なんて。
You're about to be taken away and you're still worrying about other people?
まあいい。
Whatever.
そういうやつだったな、お前は。
Guess that's just who you are. Kunosato sighed in resignation.
今あいつらに行っているのは染色体に異常が見られないかどうかの検査だけだ。まあ健康診断みたいなものだが。
All I'm doing now is checking their chromosomes for abnormalities. It's basically like a physical. Just check their chromosomes. Turns out vaccines can't give you autism, but magic can.
少なくとも老化の原因が完全に突き止められるまでは検査は続ける。
If nothing else, I'm going to keep it up until we can completely determine the cause of the aging process.
徐々に減らしていく予定だ。
Right now it's once a week, but I'm planning on cutting it back gradually.
いつ頃から減らしていけるんです？
When can you start cutting it back? I don't know, Misato said. From the way she was talking, she wasn't lying. She really didn't know. My role in researching and curing Chaos Child Syndrome had mostly come to an end after I created the image. All that was left was Sarkuno Sato and the regular scientists helping her to figure out the scientific cause. They seemed to be having a hard time figuring out what caused the artificial aging process. As for what they knew now, there were structures called telomeres at the ends of a chromosome which were related to the aging process in some way. That's not going to be relevant. There were signs Chaos Child Syndrome patients were artificially creating them inside their bodies. Wait, if you extend your telomeres, that means you look more youthful, though. These false telomeres shortened at a greatly accelerated rate that drastically restricted the number of times the cell could divide. Ah, okay, they had a shorter rate. They were shorter. Okay, that makes sense. The hypothesis was that the brain recognized these artificial telomeres as real and initiated the aging process. Much of that was still in the realm of hypothesis, and Kunosato herself didn't seem satisfied with the explanation at all, but whatever the underlying principle, when I asked her what happened, she shrugged and said this.
精神や肉体がこう勘違いしているせいじゃないか。妄想の世界で生きるということは
It's probably
新
because
しい自分に
the
生まれ変わ
mind
ることだ。
and the body mistakenly think that living in delusion means being reborn into a new person.
そうか。精神的な勘違いだけじゃなく、肉体的にも勘違いをしたんだ。
It's not just the mind that's mistaken, the body as well. The phenomenon where these mistakes or errors would occur along the chromosomes had been known in the medical world for a long time. That's right, it was the same mechanism as cancer. In other words, former Chaos Child Syndrome patients were at a high risk of developing that disease. Denry and the others would probably keep getting exams to look for those errors in their cells, all without knowing why. And according to Kunosato, she had no idea when those exams might end. They might go on forever.
実はお前に関して興味深いことがあるんだが。
Actually, there's something very interesting regarding you too. So I'm curious: is he going to go to trial, and would he actually get? Why would he actually get trialed? If he does, he's probably not getting a long amount of time. He shouldn't realistically get a long amount of time if he's somehow found guilty, because he did just cure like several hundred people. He went out of his way to cure several hundred people. Was so cooperative with the police that they let him wander off on his own and do his own thing and like independently research some stuff. So like that would probably count towards like some really nice bonus points with the judge where you're like, oh yeah, it was like insanity, it was part of my Chaos Child syndrome, and because I did all this stuff I was able to cure it and save like 100 people. Yeah, I was completely insane and killed 5 people, but I'm no longer insane, and because I killed because I went through this whole weird process, you'd probably be like, well, you see, you could probably get a lawyer to plead, like, well, he did kill these people, but he clearly wasn't in his right mind, because we all agree Chaos Child Syndrome patients aren't in their right minds. And the process, I don't know what caused it, but he was somehow able to break out of the Chaos Child Syndrome, which was believed to be incurable. And because we cured it, and possibly through this weird process, and all the things he went through, we were able to replicate his mental state and push it onto the other people, which he helped us set up and research to prove that we could cure these people. So, yeah, he did kill several of them, but he did cure several of them, which we wouldn't have been able to do ever. Like, I feel like that is a pretty good, I feel like that's a pretty strong mitigating factor. You have like a mix of like the insanity defense, and you'd be like, okay, I was actually insane, I wasn't necessarily in control of all my actions. And, I actually feel genuinely sorry for this. I went out of my way and spent like the next year fixing these people's problems so that they could escape this delusion they were trapped in. And once we fixed it, it's all good. Like, am I gonna kill people? No. Obviously he didn't actually kill people, but like, well, people might have died, but I'm not gonna kill anyone right now. Like, I'm not crazy. I'm no longer afflicted with Chaos Child Syndrome. You can see my skin. It's no longer super aged magically. So, like, I feel like it would be really hard to give him, like, a very heavy sentence. If anything, he would just be, like, he might be in an institution or something, but he might have to spend some time in an institution or something, but I feel like they wouldn't be able to actually give him, like, multiple life sentences. Because it was clearly, like, insanity caused by a disease that's unlikely to recur. I don't think it would make sense to actually, like, assuming he was guilty, which he isn't. We know he isn't, but, like, maybe they have evidence that proves otherwise. I feel like he would be able to get away with a fairly light sentence. In some way, he should be pretty safe from, like, a really heavy-handed sentencing. There's something very... Alright, so what's so interesting regarding Takuru? Kunosato stared at me as if trying to peer into the bottom of my heart.
これから先、かなり長い間、お前はインターネットにアクセスできなくなる。生まれて初めてのことじゃないか。
From now on, for a very long time, you're going to lose access to the internet, probably for the first time in your life, am I right? Who knows how long it is? Yeah, come to think of it, she was right. The internet already existed when I was born, and by the time I hit puberty, it was everywhere.
情報強者を辞任していたお前が、その最大の手段を失い、情報の規制を受ける。
They put so much emphasis on being on the right side of information, of the information divide, and for the first time, you're going to have restricted access to information.
そういう生活が当然となったとき、お前の思考回路はそれまでとどう変化するんだろうな。
When that life becomes natural to you, how are your thought patterns going to change, I wonder? A while ago, I might have panicked just thinking about it, but strangely, I didn't feel like it now.
激しい情報の波にさらされていたお前と、波の全くない静かな海に漂うお前。
It'll be interesting to
精
see how
神
you
的に
change
どう変化するか。
as you go from a
楽しみだ。
roaring storm of information to drifting in a quiet, empty sea.
前に約束しましたから実験台にしていいですよ。
I promised you, feel free to use me as an experiment.
ああ、そうだったな。
You're right.
伊藤のやつは症候群だけでなく脳の方も随分回復してきたそうですね。助かりました。
Ito's getting a lot better, not just from the syndrome, but from brain damage too. Thanks for your help.
助かったのは医学的な面だ。法的なことは知らんぞ。
I was only able to save him medically. I can't make any guarantees about the legal side. Shinjo told me that Ito would be prosecuted, but in the end he'd probably be given treatment at a medical facility for minors. Again, even if you don't believe in mind control, I'm pretty sure you can go with, I'm pretty sure you could say it's a mental affliction. Like, these people literally are incapable of perceiving that they're old, or some of the other, or like, media stating stuff about them. Like, there's some serious mind-altering stuff going on with Chaos Child Syndrome. And you could argue that people react to it differently. I think a lawyer could argue for you that you had like had a mental breakdown or some shit. As long as you didn't go on the stand, you might really get that. But I think he did. He had a confession. He did have a confession video, but we don't know what he said in it. He might have said some crazy shit and then just not ever get a lawyer, so he gets like fucked pretty hard. That'd be like the stupidest way to do it, but whatever. I don't know how that works, especially because both Shinjo and Kunosato could easily testify for him that they forged his confession, knowing it was fake, for the sole purpose of spreading it as a cure for a disease. What if you sat in front of a judge? What judge would honestly take that? You're like, yes, me, a police officer, and a doctor sat down, made a fake confession video for the sole purpose of curing a disease. It's like, and they're like, you guys change him on the stand, and he's like, yeah, I swear, we literally made it intentionally to try to cure these people. Like, okay. Well, we have to throw out that confession, right? Like, how do you accept that confession as truth in a court of law, right? Like, am I the only one who thinks he should, like, the confession gets thrown out in like 5 seconds in court? You're like, okay, the 2 people who were recording it with me independently can co-claim that we made this for the purpose of getting views, and that it's like 100% lies. And then of course, obviously, like, you'd probably have like another written affidavit, yeah, from Takuru that says like, yes, it was fake. We made it specifically to get it to spread information so that we could cure the people with Chaos Child Syndrome. You have 3 people say that in court. His confession gets thrown out. That should be really easy. He might have to spend a couple months in jail, because like they probably wouldn't give bail for a serial killer, but he should get his confession thrown out almost immediately. I didn't know how long it would take, but I was relieved to know he'd eventually go free. Yeah. Remembering Yui made my heart ache, but it wasn't his fault.
久野里さんはこれからどうするつもりです？
What are you gonna do, Kunosato? I remembered something I wanted to ask before I left this place. Kunosato's eyebrows rose in surprise. I said
委員
eyebrows.
会への復讐を続けるつもりですか？
Are you gonna continue your revenge against the committee?
当然だ。涌井が言った通り、
Of course.
私は踊り続けるさ。
I'm gonna keep dancing just like Wakui said. And then, I saw a little smile form around her mouth.
そうか。なるほど。もしかしたらお前とは長い付き合いになるかもしれんな。
That's
涌井
right.
はお前のことを観測し続ける。
You and I may end up
そう
keeping
言っ
in
たん
touch.
だろ。
Wakui said he was gonna continue to observe you, didn't he?
ええ。
That's right.
この先お前が自分に降りかかってくる状況に絶望し、あるいは恐怖し、 再びギガロマニアックスとしての力を取り返してしまうか否か。
He's
そ
gonna
れが
s-
奴と
wow,
の
that's
ゲ
a
ーム
long
という
line.
わけだ。
He's gonna see whether or not you give in to despair and terror at what's about to happen to you and regain your powers as a gigalomaniac. That's your game with him.
ええ
Yep.
だったらお前は生かされ続ける。私もお前の観測を続けよう。奴の尻尾を掴むためにな。
Then you're gonna be kept alive, and I'll keep watching you so I can find him when he slips up. Again, like, they're speaking about this so dramatically, but I feel like none of, like, I feel like large portions of the confession gets thrown out. Like, you have several people agreeing that he didn't do it. The people who are, like, victimized right beside him say, oh, he didn't do it. Like, he couldn't possibly have committed this murder because he was XYZ. I feel like he's very safe on several of the murders. But it's fine. Like, I was with this person the whole time.
いいか
Okay, you're safe. I was with Ari Mura for the third murder. There's no way I could have killed that guy. I was literally with him the whole time. No way I could have killed him. Also, like... And then, like, what are they gonna say? Oh, well, he's too crazy to know who he's with. If he's too crazy to know who he's with due to Chaos Child Syndrome, then you can throw out all the murders because he couldn't have been... He couldn't have been, capable of understanding what he was doing. If he can't tell who he's with, he also can't be capable of understanding what he's doing. So it's like... He's, like, very safe on the insanity plea. Very safe. And the best thing is, because he also cured the mental affliction of, like, so many other people, you can also say, like, well, it won't happen again, but... I don't know. I don't know how they do that. There was a knock at the door and I heard a voice I knew well. Shinjo came in with a serious look on his face. He was looking at me, seemingly uncertain as to what to say. I waited, motionless, until finally he sighed. Shinjo said the words. Time.
時間だ
Yep.
はい
Alright. I slowly stood up from the chair. Shinjo knew the truth, but still accepted my decision. I could do nothing but be grateful for that. I knew how hard that had to be for a detective.
今までありがとうございました苦労かけました
Thanks for everything. I'm sorry for all the trouble. I bowed deeply.
いや君に比べたらどうということはないさ
No, it's nothing compared to what you went through. He put his hand on my shoulder. It was big and strong. If I had an older brother, would he have been like this? Possibly, although big and strong are not the words I'd use to describe Shinjo, but hey, it's cool. He is technically larger than you and older, so... It's really like the emotional impression rather than the physical impression most of the time you want
俺の方
anyway,
こそ
in a book.
ありがとう
I'm the one who should thank you. There was another detective on the other side of the door, ready to take me to the transport. The rest of the world still didn't really know what I looked like after I'd recovered from Chaos Child Syndrome. It was Shinjo who convinced the others that I'd stand out less if they didn't put handcuffs on me and try to hide my face. Thanks to that, I was able to walk outside as a normal high school kid one last time. I bowed one last time to Shinjo and then turned to Kunosato.
みんなのことよろしく頼みます
Take care of everyone for me.
ああ。またな。
Yeah, see you around. Kunosato nodded weakly and I nodded back. Seriously, these guys need a lawyer. And I headed for the exit.
ああ。宮代。
Oh, Mishiro. I feel like the cop should at least know how to get in touch with a lawyer at some point. And considering he's trying to work with you and knows you're not guilty, it's like at some point they should have introduced a lawyer and been like, how do we build a defense for this? I stopped and turned around.
危うく聞き忘れるところだった。取り立てて重要なことではないんだが。
It's so sad and dramatic. I think the only thing I don't like about this ending is that they're being like really dramatic and it's like, shouldn't they be more positive? Like, yeah, you're probably gonna be okay. Like, you have the police officer who's on your case doesn't think you're guilty. You should be okay. Oh well. There's something important you forgot to ask. It's not terribly important. Oh.
彼女の名前と年齢だ。 なぜ彼女は尾上セリカだったんだ。年齢に意味はあったのか。
Her name and age. Why Sarika Onoe? Was there a reason for her age? It was actually something I'd been thinking about for a long time after we were first apart. It was the first step of a very big mistake. When I'd finally found the answer, I'd burst out laughing.
名前は僕の両親の名前をローマ字書きしたアナグラムでした。
Her name is an anagram of my parents' names. Well, we don't even know those, so that'd be impossible for us to guess. All right, Saneo Miyashiro and Eriko Miyashiro. Eriko's probably the girl. Saneo, Eriko, yeah.
本当の親に求めるようなことを僕は彼女に求めていたんでしょうね。だからそんな名前にしたんだと思います。
The things you were supposed to look for in a parent, I saw in her. I think that's where I got the name. Okay.
でも親の役割を彼女に求めたのなら年上に設定するはずだろ。
But if you wanted her to play the role of a parent, shouldn't you have made her older than you?
そんな風に親を求めている自分を認めたくなかったんです。だから彼女は年上ではいけなかった。
I didn't want to
僕
admit
が
I wanted
守
a
るべ
parent.
き年下の女の子でなければいけなかった。
So she couldn't be older than me. She had to be a girl who was younger than me so I could protect her.
子供ながらにつまらないプライドですね。今考えると本当に愚かでした。
It was a stupid pride even for a kid. Thinking back, I was really a fool.
そうか。
If I wasn't mistaken, I caught a glimpse of gentleness in her expression.
でもお前はちゃんと彼女を守った。今はもう愚かじゃないさ。
Did protect her. You're not a fool anymore. Well, sort of. She's not going to jail, and she's not in the news. Worked out kind of okay for her. I smiled back at her and turned away. I made my stride a little longer than usual so my resolve wouldn't waver. And then I stepped out the door. Cut to Sarika? It had been forever since I'd been outside and the weather was beautiful. I was so used to darkness that strong sunlight stung my eyes. The wind was a little cold, but it felt good. It swirled by as if purifying my whole body. I almost said the opposite. I almost said putrefying. I was surprised not to see any reporters or gawkers, but I learned later that Kei, aka Kunasato, had given the media and internet false information. I walked for a while until I saw a black car stopped on the side of the road. It was probably the transport car. I felt a sense of deja vu and stopped to look around. And then I remembered.
そうか。
Right. This was a corner of AH Tokyo General Hospital. 6 years ago during the earthquake, it had been an evacuation shelter. The detective saw that I stopped and asked me what was wrong. There were too many feelings inside me to explain. That's right. This is where I created her. I stood there in silent shock, nearby in the bright sunlight, just a few seconds away if I were to run. He was standing there. The girl I thought for sure I'd never meet again. She was looking at me as if uncertain whether to smile, cry, or get mad. There was a girl next to her I didn't know, about the same age. Why?
なんで
What's she doing here? That's a good question. What is she doing here? I couldn't look away. I couldn't move. We were so close, but... Oh, wow, they are like right beside each other. That's a new shot. Not bad. Not bad. I like the way they did the stone. I really like the way they did the stone in this picture. The glass is also quite good. The glass and the reflective polished surface of like the granite or marble they have there too is also really nice. It's actually just like a really nice drawing. Great job. The only thing that's unclear are like Takuru's eyes under his glasses, which don't appear to have been drawn at all. We were so close, but we were staring at each other across a distance that could never be crossed. The detective told me to start walking. I couldn't answer. I realized my fists were clenched.
セリカ
Hey, cat?
何
What? I heard a pretty voice. The soft wind seemed to be carrying it to me.
どうしたのいきなり誰あれ知ってる人
What's that? Who's that? Someone you know? I didn't know what feelings were being exchanged between us, but I could see tears forming in her eyes.
知らない人。
No, I don't know. And the tears fell without a sound. She was smiling. The girl next to her must have been her best friend. She wiped away her tears and smiled so that her friend wouldn't see them. And then she turned around and walked away from me. Time started to move again, and a smile formed on my face as well.
僕も君なんて知らない。
Yeah, I don't know you either. The sun stung my eyes. I looked up at the sky. That sudden tears wouldn't fall to the ground. I was crying tears of joy. That's what I believed. That's what I had to believe. Everything was for the best.
すいません。行きましょう。
Sorry. Let's go. I said to the detective, and then I started to walk. I didn't look at her as she got further away. We would never see each other again. And the paths we walked would never cross. That was how we would live our lives together. I see. And now it ends for real, after the credits, after 3 scenes? Call it 3 scenes. 3 scenes-ish. Silent Sky End. Alright. And that, my friends, was the true ending to Chaos Child. Very nice. Alright. That was pretty good. I'm looking forward to seeing what the studio comes out with next after this. It was quite good. Hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. Thanks for watching.